just jamming out.
Yay!
All right.
It's Saturday. We're here.
Right? It's happening. We're making it happen.
Oh, my God.
A little bit frazzled, but we're good.
I'm always frazzled. It's fine.
It's all good. It's all gravy. I'm excited for this one. It's going to be kind of a lot, I feel like.
It's going to be something. I'm telling you. It's
such a well-known case.
It's a lot to unpack. I'm not going to lie.
Yeah. And there's so much, most people have watched at least like one documentary or one thing about it kind of thing. And it's like so much can be so biased that it's like, it'll be interesting. I'm excited.
Well, and if you missed one little piece of it, then...
right. Yeah, there's always like some new little thing that you had never heard about kind of thing. It's like, oh, wait, what? That changes things a bit.
Yeah. Okay, so. I'm trying to get... There we go. Good Lord, I'm a mess.
Oh, your screen? Getting the screen set up so you can actually see the comments and everything?
Apparently,
it helps.
It hates me a lot.
Normally, it's like my responsibility to have all the technology hate me. So we're taking turns this week.
It's fine.
We're
going to go with it. I don't know why it's... So I don't have a screen. It's okay.
So, all right. Having a look.
Well, let's see who's here real quick.
Yeah.
Sugar Kitty, meow. Sugar Kitty was on time. We were not.
Shimming up her.
And Nick Proman says cheers.
Hi, Nick.
Sensibility. Richard White is here.
Cheers.
Okay. So we're probably not going to see William because he's a better person than me, and he showed up for our friend's 8-year-old's birthday party. And I felt super bad because this was already scheduled, and I'm not making the birthday party because I'm here with you.
Sorry, yeah. Well, we're gonna make up for it this is gonna be a very cool episode. So
oh my gosh. So we literally it takes so much to research an unsolved case. And Audrina, I know you're like me. I don't like unsolved cases. I don't like to cover them. I don't like to research them. I feel like this one's different.
Yeah. I feel like generally I hate unsolved case, and I just I don't touch them. I don't listen to the podcast episodes. Sometimes I'll skim to try and see if it's an unsolved, and I'll skip it kind of thing. But this one, I think because regardless of if you wanted to know or not, something about it. So it's you can't help but then dig in more because it's oh, is that true? Or is this true? Oh, wait, there's this thing. Oh, wait, there's this thing.
It's this person believes this person believes that.
Yeah. It's this rabbit hole that just keeps getting deeper and deeper. Oh, sweet. Have fun, Malum.
That's awesome. Hello.
That'll be fun.
So I want to, it's one of these. So Adriana's going to be telling the bulk of this. And I'm probably not going to stop. And we'll take some time to go through some things with chat. I am going to highlight some comments. I'd love to hear your guys' take on this. We're going to go back through afterwards and kind of look through them. We'll probably go through some of them. I'm going to jot some down so we can talk about them at the end. If you have something that you really feel passionate about, throw it up on the screen and we'll address it. We'll do it. However,
and I'll try to see some of them, and if it ties into exactly that part, kind of thing, or I have a quick actually fun fact that's not true or whatever kind of thing. We'll definitely respond to things.
And it's funny because I've thrown this particular case into Patreon a lot of times, but there's always been one just a bit more interesting. And I think now we're at a point where what I thought 5-10 years ago is complete. They're starting to uncover more and more stuff, right?
Yeah. What I thought going into, we were kind of tied between two cases. So I was researching both. What I thought going into researching this to what I think now is what nope. It's oh, there is so much more to the story than I knew. So
I
yeah.
still
Well,
feel like I still lean towards the same conclusion in my brain. However, I question it a lot more.
mhm,
So,
mhm.
Richie Z is here, says, whoops, that wasn't the one. That's the one. Cheers,
What's
Michelle
up,
and
Richie
Adriana,
Z?
and Whiskey Friends.
What's up, buddy?
Mike Stahl just showed up and said, hello, women.
How's it going, Mike?
Uh,
And Doug is here.
okay, so not
Do we want
only...
to? Do we want to make
I
the
said,
cocktail?
not only are we starting, we're going to go into the JonBenet Ramsey case and all the interesting stuff around it. And honestly, let's talk about, I love investigators, police officers, district attorneys. I think that they often get a bad rap. I got to say, I'm not too thrilled with how they handled this one. So we'll get your opinion on it.
There's one investigator I love, but
Yes.
for the most part, I'm like, what were y'all? But yeah, we'll get into it. There is some in fairness things, some caveats with like literally everything about this case. So
not only are we going to dive into that, but we are going to make a Belmont Jewel cocktail. Patrons voted on it. That's what we're going with. And it was close. Like both of the cases, like the cases were super close. This one kind of won by a couple of points. It came out strong though. So
yeah, the cocktail was like, that was the clear winner from the get-go.
Yeah.
But the cases were like neck and neck the whole time. So yeah.
Now, if you want to make the cocktail, you can come back to it. It's in the description, everything that we're going to do. If you question where we got some of our sources, those are also in the description as well. Whiskey Mountains link is in the description. Adriana has a channel called Whiskey Mountains, as well as collaborating with Women of Whiskeys, and it's fantastic. So give her a like and subscribe. She goes hiking. She does great reviews and has an amazing palate. So just go check it out, like and subscribe. With that, let's see. We have a lot to get through tonight. We're not going to be able to get to all of the different rabbit holes in this case.
Yeah,
we are definitely going to try and share with you the most prevalent. So
yeah, I want to really address the biggest points and all the key
Thank you for that. Richie Z's throwing up Adriana's link. So
thanks, Richie Z.
Meanwhile, let's go ahead and Adriana's going to start talking a little bit about what we're doing. Meanwhile, I'm going to make this cocktail so you guys can see it. If you want to know what I'm putting in it, those ingredients, again, super simple. I'll run through them. We're going to do some bourbon. I'm using Rare Breed. What are you using?
I'm going with Wild Turkey 101.
Perfect.
And trying to be able to speak.
We're going to do some lemonade.
Yep.
And we're going to add some pomegranate juice. And
1.5 ounces bourbon, 2 ounces lemonade.
Strain it and then drink it. So here we go. Take it
buddy.
away, Adriana.
Mine's all just going to be honest. So, but just to start, get started on all of this, I do want to point out, like, the way whenever you hear this story told, whether in a documentary or a podcast, there's almost always some kind of agenda, some kind of bias. They are coming to basically either the conclusion or leaning very heavily towards the conclusion that the Ramseys did it, or they're leaning towards the opposite, that the Ramseys are innocent and that it was an outsider into the home. My issue with that is it means you don't see, both sides to a lot of the evidence that they present. And I don't think, I used to feel very set one way, but the more I dug into the evidence and started understanding both sides of it, the more I realized, like, I don't think anybody should really feel certain about who did it once you know all the details, kind of thing. But like 3 weeks ago, I was feeling like 90% sure, I know it was this person. I know they did it. Like, I know they wrote it. So, but for those who aren't familiar with the case, we're going to get into it. I'm going to get started. So this was JonBenet Ramsey.
Oh, I'm so sorry. I forgot one thing. I hate to interrupt you. I'm so sorry.
Go. Oh, yeah. We need to do the disclaimer.
I feel like it's super important, though. Okay, first of all, I'm going to mute this mic in just a second so we can shake, and strain. However, you know how it is. I'm going to give you guys this disclaimer before she jumps into this because I think it's so important. We are talking about the unsolved case of a young child, JonBenet Ramsey. And I want you to understand that this case, in particular, is going to have some triggering items that we talk about in there. It's going to talk about homicide. It's going to talk about assault. It's going to talk about child homicide, child assault. I know that some of these topics can bring forward some really intense feelings for some people. So if you feel like that might be too much for you, it's cool. I suggest you shut it down. Catch us on Wednesday. We'll see you Wednesday in chat. No big deal. And then also just know that this should not be your only source of information for this case. We do a lot of research. We gather from court papers, documentaries, books, all kinds of things. Those sources are down below. But just know some of those sources may have their own biased or opinions. So don't make this your only stop for information. We are definitely not professionals.
Yeah. So I try to make this as unbiased and fact-checked as possible, but a lot of the facts are hard to check. And yeah, we're not professionals. We don't actually have access to, police evidence or any of that. So
okay, I'm gonna mute real quick so we can shaky.
Okie doke. Mine's just on ice. I didn't pull out the shaker because I didn't realize I needed one. So.
That was my workout for the day.
There you go. The person in our case tonight. And her parents were John and Patsy Ramsey. So Patsy was from West Virginia. She was Miss West Virginia in 1977, and so kind of involved in that sort of pageant world. But also she did graduate in 1978 with a bachelor's in journalism. And then John was born in 1943, so he's a bit older than her. Born in Lincoln, Nebraska, so he's not a Southerner. And graduated in 1966 with a bachelor's in electrical engineering, and then got his master's in business administration. Have you tried it yet?
Yeah. Cheers.
Cheers. I kind of dig it.
It's really different. I don't think I've had anything quite like this.
Yeah. It has a bit more sweetness than I thought it would.
I thought it would be more tart. The pomegranate really zaps it.
Yeah.
I think I would drink one.
Yeah. I wouldn't have a bunch.
Yeah. I can have 6 gold rushes, but I could probably only have one of these.
Yeah, exactly. It's this isn't, you want to make a whole punch bowl out of it or whatever kind of thing. But I think it's worth one.
If you do a little bit sweeter, but not foo-foo girl sweet, then you might like this.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I'm drinking it with a lower proof whiskey also.
That makes sense.
So it's at both proofs, it's still coming off kind of sweet. Yeah. So go figure. All right. So they both have their degrees. John and Patsy got married in 1980 in Atlanta, Georgia. And in 1987 is when Burke was born there in Atlanta. And then 1990, JonBenet was born. So John, the father, had a previous marriage and had some kids from that marriage that are sometimes brought up. I don't think they're particularly relevant to the case, but that is a real thing. And I think I was confused about her name. It turns out she's named after her dad. So even though she's the second child, she's the one who's named after the father. And so his name is JonBenet. And she's JonBenet.
I think that's such a great play on a name. That's pretty great.
Yeah, yeah. I just think it's weird that he had a son and they did not want, and maybe there was a reason, maybe there was somebody close to them named Burke that they wanted to name him after. And so he's, they saved it for later or whatever. Just
But
seems,
didn't he have an older son too? I can't remember the two older.
yeah.
Is it a boy and a girl?
Yeah, I know he's at least got an older son named John Andrew.
Okay.
So maybe it was too close to that. I don't know, kind of thing. But, and I mean, yeah, it is kind of a neat way to do, to incorporate it. So, and then shortly after JonBenet was born, they moved to Boulder, Colorado. And that's where this case takes place. Mike, you've met John Ramsey?
I mean, they're both in Colorado.
Yeah. Is he as cold as he seems? That would be bizarre. So they moved to Boulder. John was actually CEO of Access Graphics at this time, which is a Lockheed Martin company, which basically means he made really good money. Like they were making bank. They had 2 private planes. They had a yacht. They had a 6,500 square foot house, their own pilot and everything. Like they were doing quite well. And JonBenet was a very social child. Like she was that type who like loved to perform for people kind of thing. So I think both Patsy and John, the parents, thought it was at Access. Oh, before Lockheed. Wow.
Okay, yeah, because Access was where he started, right? And then moved.
Well, but I think Access, like maybe it was bought by Lockheed,
or
later on
or something.
Yeah. So,
wow, Mike, that's crazy.
I know at some point Access belongs to Lockheed. But, JonBenet really just enjoyed dressing up and performing and everything. So it made sense that they kind of got her into these pageants. And of course, Patsy was really into pageants and everything. So that's kind of like where we are at going into 1996. And speaking of how wealthy they were, at the type of JonBenet's death in 1996 on Christmas Day, the Ramsey's net worth was, why are they different?
Yeah,
$7,348,628. But then what's the other number?
Net worth was like $6,230.
Okay, so it was like, yeah, it's funny because I've seen other things, but okay, gotcha. So his total thing was $7 million. So basically there was a difference of $1,118,000. And so that number there is going to come into play later. So now to get to the actual case. So it is December 26, 1996. And so just for the absolute basics of it, I kind of created this little timeline to get people oriented. And so you can see that on December 26th at 5:51 in the morning, a 911 call is made by Patsy Ramsey, who I keep wanting to call Patsy Cline. She's not Patsy Cline, it's Patsy Ramsey. And calling to say that there is a ransom note and that their daughter is missing. Within 10 minutes, the cops have arrived, and shortly after, their friends have arrived. They quickly called 2 couples, friends of theirs, and their pastor who came. And then a few hours later, after having reported a kidnapping and that they found a ransom note at 1 o'clock that afternoon, so this is all the day after Christmas, the body was discovered in the basement. So that's kind of how this all gets initiated.
Real quick, yep. I know I got some mods in here. Can you guys handle some stuff? Thank you so much.
Yeah, that'd be good.
Go ahead. Sorry.
Kind of weird that they'd be doing it that way. So, so mods will take care of that. We're good. So at 5:51, when Patsy made that phone call, she says, "We have a kidnapping," which a lot of people kind of jump on too. And shortly after, like I mentioned, these people, their friends arrived and everything. But here's like where the cops just did not do such a great job, right? All these people are in the house. If you have a kidnapping, this is so interesting. If you have a kidnapping, obviously the only physical evidence you have is at the location that kidnapping occurred, right? So you want to protect that crime scene. And yet they did not. They allowed all of these people. So this is the two parents, their two sets of friends. So this were two couples. So that's four people, and the pastor to be at the house, be all around the house and everything. I would say you just kick them because I think it's obvious.
Most of them, yeah. There's a couple that were just riding the line, but for most of those, yes, please.
Yeah. So, and then, so immediately, people are being allowed to trudge all around this crime scene, which is contaminating your crime scene. And as I mentioned, at 1:00, John found the body. He picked her up. He removed her duct tape, tried to remove the ropes from her wrist and from her neck, and carried her upstairs. So again, you are contaminating a ton of evidence just in that one go. And at that point, the cops and family and everyone stood around and prayed around the body, which, again, you don't want a bunch of people just meandering around the crime scene.
I feel like that as much as you could possibly contaminate this is exactly what happened.
Yeah. It's kind of, it's like a perfect example of what not to do. So there we go. Things are toning down now. Perfect.
So they're like, there goes your viewers. I'm like, we don't need those viewers that bad. It's fine.
Yeah, it's like not a problem. We're fine. So now that they have a body, trying to get back into focus, and what actually happened to her. So I'm going to kind of just give the overview and not the details. There was evidence of sexual molestation, but it is fairly unclear. There's definitely not penetration, but there's definitely indications of sexual molestation. There's strangulation, and there is also severe brain fracture to the head. And depending on the medical examiner, either the brain fracture occurred first and then the strangulation, or vice versa, which can kind of contribute to potential theories of what actually happened in this case. So,
sorry, so to get making Top Dog a mod. Apologize.
Yeah, perfect. No, that's all good. Richie and Mike are just crushing it also. So you guys are rocking it. Thank you so much. It's not a surprise that a case with such a famous name would attract a bunch of trolls. So absolutely unsurprising. But to get a fuller picture of what was going on, once now the cops know that there's been a murder and they start to get a little more of the story filled in, we know that the Ramseys actually, where'd it go? There it goes. The Ramseys were actually at a party on Christmas Day from like about 5 to 9:30, 5 to 10. And the party was very close by. They came home and immediately put JonBenet to bed. And I'll probably reference back to this timeline. This is just to help make it so that y'all can, more easily sort of follow along how things might have gone. Immediately put her to bed. And then you kind of know they were getting up purposely early in the morning at 5:45 because they had a flight the next day to visit all of the rest of his family, those children. And so that's why they were up so early to begin with and found the ransom note and what have you. But now,
don't you think it's kind of weird that like she said she found the ransom note on the back stairs, but why would you leave a note on the back stairs? Wouldn't you put it on the main stairs?
Yeah, it's like, because she said like the way she came down the stairs from her bedroom was actually like the back way down these stairs kind of thing. That was always the way she came down. But you would think like that an outsider wouldn't know that you go down those stairs, and that you like might not actually see it if you would put it on the main staircase that other people would likely think.
Yeah.
So
if you just wanted to like kidnap some rich guy's kid to get money, chances are you're going to assume that it needs to be in one of the main areas.
Right. Yeah. So like, and granted though, like they had just had like a Christmas party at their house recently. They have people over there a lot kind of thing. So who knows how many people have like been there, and in passing, it's like, oh, we never used the staircase kind of thing. Who knows like what kind of comments like that could be said. So it's possible somebody else might know, but it's kind of weird that somebody else would know that that's the staircase. Also, like, why leave it on the stairs? That just seems, leave it on the fridge or something, or, you know, like.
Yeah. And that's where, like, I think once they like realized some of them, I don't know, but it seemed like they named a shit ton of people that they think could have done it.
Yeah. 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 Oh, yeah. Yeah. There's, I mean, a lot of people were definitely investigated for it, kind of thing. And so this is where it does start to get a little weird. So at this point, it's the day of, the family calls in their lawyers. So the cops get to talk to them that day, right? They're obviously there, then investigating the scene. The family leaves to go to their friends, stay with their friends immediately. But they call their lawyers, and within a week, on January 1st, they do an interview on the news on CNN. However, they do not go to the police station and talk directly with the cops on oath, you know, recorded, like would be the normal part of this kind of investigation. And they don't do that for 4 months, which
okay, so your kid is gone.
Right.
I don't know.
A lot of us feel like, you know, and what you see in a lot of other cases is they understand that, of course, the initial primary suspects are the people in the house. The body is found in this house. Statistically, most likely the people to do it are the people who actually are supposed to have loved them and are in that vicinity. So a lot of times what you'll do is you'll volunteer to help the investigate, you know, ask me whatever questions you want so that you can move on and start getting to the actual, and instead it's 4 months later.
Well, and in that 4 months, this is what got me, and I apologize if you're going to talk about this later, but it just irks me that they were like getting people to pull stuff out of the house and take it to the Ramseys. Like, oh, I need my golf bag in the winter after my child was killed 2 days ago. And
is that a priority?
They're bringing like handfuls of shit out of the house that wasn't collected, that wasn't tested. And, you know, there was one of the officers that was talking about back then, there was kind of this, if you had that kind of money, everyone kind of tiptoed around you. And so I think that's how this case got to be so hard to investigate because everything was contaminated.
Yeah. I mean, everything was contaminated. They were kind of difficult to work with. But I will say, because like I said, I do want to make sure we address sort of both sides of things, is that immediately after, and I saw it in, actual case files and a documentation that was presented during the grand jury indictment, is that the cops, because Patsy was so upset and, you know, she needed to be medicated, in fact, initially, that they allowed them, we're like, we have not interrogated them yet out of respect for her mental state or whatever. And then they allowed them to go back to Atlanta to do the funeral because that's where they were from before. That's where a lot of Patsy's family was. Yeah. And so then they stayed in Atlanta after having had the funeral for a few months. So a part of it was that the cops were like, oh, we don't want to upset you more. Absolutely, go ahead and go to Atlanta. But now how are they, it's not as easy to come in. And obviously they weren't going to stay at their house when they come in, to do whatever interrogations.
So there came a point where if you saw any of the documentaries or read any of the stuff up to a certain point, everybody's talking about this stuff, right? Like these parents are acting shady. They must have done it. And I mean, I don't know, but I think that when you get to a certain status, you're guarding everything. Now, I'm not saying they did or didn't do it. I'm saying that it's second nature to be like, I'm going to get a lawyer right away. I'm going to do this and that because that's how your life is. And then you've got the district attorneys and stuff. What was it? Somebody's walking through the house. They're throwing blankets over the body and stuff. I don't know. Releasing the body early for the funeral. I feel like that kind of money.
Applies this pressure kind of thing. For sure. Yeah, like it definitely, I think, affected the way the case was done. But I think also what affected the way the case was run is that Boulder has such a low crime rate that this was literally their first murder. It's Christmas, the day after Christmas, and it's the first murder of 1996 for Boulder. Like that's how often their cops were investigating. Right. Like you don't have, it's vacation time or whatever. Plus, none of your people are even used to investigating murders anyway, or how to handle the crime scene. So I think they just like also weren't experienced enough to handle it. And then you've got rich people who can, you immediately are a little more nervous around and more willing to just let them do whatever kind of thing. So it's like I think there's a bit of that. Thanks so much, William Hall.
Thank you.
You needed the support.
I do want to say real quick, for those of you that are used to coming to my channel, there is no mystery box giveaway tonight, but there is Plinko. So I just wanted you guys to know that up front. We appreciate any and all donations for this series to pay for subscriptions and whatnot. However, there is no mystery box game, just Patreon Plinko at the end of the stream.
Yeah. So just keep that in mind. So I think that definitely affected how the cops handled the initial sort of thing. But like, imagine the amount of crime scene contamination that has now occurred.
And what do you do with that? By the time you get in there, you can't reel it back.
Right. Like you can't rewind that kind of thing. You can't salvage that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So, and part of it was that, so at some point in this morning, most of the cops had left the crime scene, the house, and there was one detective left behind to basically keep an eye on 7 people, I think at this point, 7 adults and Burke, in a 6,500 square foot house. And so I want to point out, like, there is a period of time that the detective does not see John Ramsey for a while, for like an hour and a half to 2 hours, maybe.
Yeah.
This has been sort of worded different ways, where sometimes it's implied that like he left the house or that she was looking for him and could not find him during that time. But she has like clarified herself of like, it's more like the last time she saw him was around 10:30. And then like around noon, she, goes into one room and sees him, and he was like checking the mail and seemed very antsy kind of thing. So at 12:30, she then, because they were all seeming so antsy and she was struggling to keep an eye on everybody, I want to point out something. It was because they thought it was a kidnapping, FBI had been called in, and an FBI behavioralist was on the way. And so he was talking to the detective, and she was saying about how antsy they were. So this FBI agent is the one who suggested, okay, have them search the house and feel like, give them busy work and just have them search the house to try and find, clues for us, sort of thing.
Give them something to do, to feel a part of, like they're doing something to help.
Right. Like, I mean, yeah, please have people that would obviously be potential suspects investigate for us and look for clues for us in the only location we know we could have physical evidence at. That sounds like a really smart plan. But this was not a Boulder police mistake. This was an FBI mistake kind of thing.
Yeah, and it wasn't just, there was people, her friends were like coming and going as well. And they're trying to keep them from doing that. But,
but not very well.
Like fairly coherent,
Yeah. So then she, so she tells them, okay, guys, like, why don't you search the house from top to bottom and see if we can't find any, helpful things.
Yeah.
Or suspicious things. And people make a fuss out of this because they often indicate that maybe that she worded it as in like start at the top and then work your way down to the bottom, and that John Ramsey immediately went down to the basement. But she actually said from top to bottom, which is a very common phrase.
Yeah.
And I think like the
top to bottom.
Right. And he's, as far as John Ramsey's concerned, he lived, the parents' bedroom is on the top floor. The kids' bedroom's on the second floor. The first floor is the main floor that everybody's been hanging out on anyways, kind of thing. Like, the kitchen, the living room, and whatever. So like the obvious spot that's like been the least searched so far is the basement. So I don't think it's that crazy that he went directly to the basement. And so that's exactly what he did. Him and his buddy, Fleet White. His first name is Fleet. They went to the basement. He goes into the room. that was like their wine cellar. And he finds JonBenet's body and it was under this white blanket.
So if I remember right, on this one, like multiple people had tried to open that door and it was locked. And so that was where some of that got weird for them, was they're like, I tried that door. And his friend had even tried it and it was open. And so he opened it, but it was so dark he couldn't see anything. So he shut it. And then all of a sudden,
that's what I had heard. Yeah, I hadn't heard about it being locked, but I'd heard about that his friend had like checked it very quickly earlier, but like, you know, didn't know where the light switch or whatever it was. He was just kind of, because apparently his friend, his daughter, so Fleet White, his daughter had gone missing like just a month ago or something, but it just turned out she was like hiding. And then they ended up finding her, you know, after having freaked out about it and everything sort of deal. So, you know, initially he's like, let me just make sure she wasn't like hiding down here and then fell asleep kind of thing, waiting for somebody to find her. And so he's like calling her name and, you know, so that's why he didn't make a fuss also, I think, about trying to find the light, because he's like calling her name, she'll respond, you know. So instead, now John finds her, immediately is like, you know, that's when, you know, she's dead, there she is. And she was under a blanket, but I mean, I think it's pretty obvious that there's a figure laying under that blanket. And he removes the duct tape and, you know, tries to get these ropes off, but it's pretty clear that she's already dead. And now he carries her up the stairs. And
he like lets out this yell, right?
Yeah. He like yelled as soon as he walked into the room. I've seen it worded as that before turning on the light, that he yelled, "Here she is," and then turned on the light. But I also think it's unclear of if that's just like the way Fleet made his statement of what happened, of whether he was like, you know, oh, he walked in, he yelled, she turned on the light, she, you know, here she is, and he turned on the light, and, you know, as opposed to like actually stating that as a sequential things. Yeah, so it's a lot of these things can very much just be like, is it just because of the way it was worded and it was worded in that order, or like so much of it comes down to that. So, but that like, that's why I want to keep making points of like, don't just take this as that's exactly how it happened. It could be a little less clear than that. So now.
But what's weird about that is he yelled and everyone came running.
Yeah.
Except for Patsy. She didn't move off the couch.
Yeah.
She was also drugged to the hilt.
Yeah. I was going to say, I think she was already, because she was like really, you know, throughout like the first initial part of all of this, you know, is being highly medicated because of, I mean,
judging her, but she's literally like maxed out on anti-anxiety medication.
Right. Yeah, like barely conscious sort of thing. So how much of that is because, So here's where I kind of want to start getting into a lot of these things of whether or not, you know, that kind of imply that it might have been the Ramseys. A lot of the weird, suspicious stuff that they did that feels like it could have been them and just don't seem normal, or, you know, seems like evidence against them kind of thing. So first off, the 911 call. Like I've heard it in a bunch of things, you know, we're not playing the audio here, but she starts off saying, "We have a kidnapping." And then she never says JonBenet's name. She, you know, it's very strange word. Like she does sound panicky and everything, but it is strange wording, you know, in an interview with the 911 dispatcher was like, this just felt off to me immediately. And there's some discussion about whether or not you could kind of hear things after she hung up, but also the fact that she hung up, which is really unusual. And normally, you know, 911 wants you to stay on the phone until the police have actually arrived. But it's also unusual for the person calling in, especially in this kind of situation. You know, they've got a lifeline to help right now. And for them to close that off themselves is weird. And I know initially it kind of sounds like she's like, okay, I call the cops, now what? And that's what the dispatcher says, sort of thing. Like she didn't quite initially hang up. And it's like, but I can also see that as like
are you sure they're coming?
You're coming, please. You're coming. Yeah. So, but I don't know too, if it was like, because she was already, because immediately after she calls their friends to come over. which some people also find weird. This part I don't think is really a red flag, because it's like, if it was me, Nick and I have talked about this multiple times, where like, if it was me and my close friends were nearby, like I would absolutely be calling them immediately. I mean, like, I don't want to deal with all of this, you know, by myself or just with my spouse. Like, I would want those who care about me there to support.
You would want all hands on deck, right?
Right,
like,
right.
Everybody get over here. Everybody start looking. Everybody put your brains together. Oh my God. And then someone please hold me upright.
Yeah. And I mean, like, if you've seen the two of them in interviews, like, John Ramsey doesn't seem the type to be very comforted. You know, like he seems like the type of like, okay, what do we need to do to get things taken care of, and that sort of thing. But not like the, like, he's going to be, and he's going through it too, you know, theoretically. Like, if they are innocent, he's going through it too. So it's like, yeah, they need outsiders there to support them. So I can understand that logic. Just strange that the cops would allow all those extra people to stay, I think, is more the screw up there.
Well, and I think that it's one of those things too, where I see him as, I'm the provider, I hold the family together, and so I have to be strong. And in order to do that, I can't deal with her because I'm going to lose my freaking mind. That's how I looked. That's how I took it.
Yeah, I can see that. And I was talking to Nick about that. Like, I could see him sort of purposely being detached because he's like, I can't handle all those sort of emotions right now, or I will not be able to hold it together, like you're saying, sort of deal. So like, I can see that as a personality trait. Yeah, and she was well known for not wearing the same thing every day. So
I remember when she asked for someone to pick up her black jeans from the house, and they're like, it's 1,500 miles away. You have credit cards.
Yeah, like, you've got a ton of money. You could buy some new jeans.
I'd buy some new jeans.
Right? No, you would ship it all the back from Scotland and buy a bunch of whiskey.
I may have done that.
If y'all don't know about that, you need to check out more Women of Whiskeys. But I think one of the biggest things that just looks so suspicious is the ransom note itself. I think that is one of the big things on this case. She's dead in the house. She's not kidnapped. So a ransom note is already a moot point right there. It's a 3-page ransom note. Like, and it's not Post-it notes, you know, like, it's a 3-page ransom note. And it was written on a notepad and pen that belonged to the house. So like, both Patsy and John had their own notepads and pens that they kept, so that it's like, if you get a phone call, but they each had their own individual one. Patsy's both notepad and pen were used. And then after the ransom note is completed, were put back where they belong, which is like, does feel like such a bomb thing to do.
Wait, hold on. I'm going to kidnap this kid. I'm going to stop here at the house, write the ransom. Wait, I need a pen. Hold on. Grab a pen, undo it, write the ransom note. Hold on. Put the pen back. Put it.
Yeah. It just seems so suspicious. And I want to come back real quick. I said at the beginning that I want to make this as unbiased as possible. So as much as I'm presenting all of this on the side of like, look how fucking shady this looks, trust me, I'm coming back around. So it's all going to come right back around. So, but like, also like when right, it does. It looks so shady. So, and like, you look at the handwriting, and she was not cleared by handwriting an analyst. And yeah, there were 2 drafts initially, which they can tell by the imprinting on the notepad. They can tell that there had been drafts initially. And yeah, it's a ridiculous ransom. Like, it's so extra. It's a very dramatic ransom note. Beauty pageant mom, she did it. Yes, inadequate sized attaché.
You are correct. Yeah. There was a lot of those.
Yeah, it was. It had a lot of weird wording, things that seemed like purposeful misspellings, but then other words like attaché or countermeasures were spelled correctly. It was from a foreign faction. Like it
used a lot of the words that the Ramseys would use.
Right, or people who've watched Speed. Yeah, because there's a lot of lines in it that are very similar to quotes from movies. So it's like even that, and there's a lot of movie posters in the Ramsey's house that implies like they're pretty in it. So it's just all these weird the wording of it, and you can easily Google the note. I did not put that up here. It's a long note.
It's long.
So
but
it's a very easy thing to find.
You know how you said you're going to come back around? Just now, this made me think there's two ways, because there's Team Ramsey, and then there's Team not Ramsey, I guess. But it could be that note had a lot of words that they would use. It was on their pad, their pen, all that. They did it. It could be, I hate the Ramseys and I'm going to take their daughter and I'm going to frame them for it. So I'm going to do all this stuff that would be so apparent.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You know, there's two sides of the coin.
It could be that they were at a Christmas party for like 5 hours before they come home, and an intruder had plenty of freaking time to hang out and write drafts and stick those drafts, because the drafts were not found, and stick those in his pocket. They don't have the drafts. They only have on the notepad imprinting, and they could tell that one started with "Dear," like Mr. and Mrs. Ramsey, and then it changed.
Well, and then let's talk about a 6,000 plus square foot house. There's lots of places for someone to just hang and wait, buy their time.
Right. Yeah, that's a huge freaking house. Very easy to happen. Mm-hmm. So, and also the ransom that's asked for, you're talking about somebody who was just in the newspaper for their company reaching whatever the business terminology is for this, but being of $1 billion value, like it had just reached that mark. So $1 billion, and they asked this guy for $118,000, a very specific number, which was John Ramsey's Christmas bonus. I do want to point out it was not that current. It was actually from the previous year. Mm-hmm. Like this Christmas bonus, was from a year ago. So I bet plenty of his coworkers or friends he had chatted about, kind of thing. Oh, I got this $118,000 Christmas bonus. I'm taking the family to blah, blah, blah. Like, it's possible for other people, it's not like, oh, he just got that, so it's fresh in his head, but who else would know? Other people could know about that Christmas bonus. Well, and then that number is like, take a couple zeros off it. People started running with that as well. If you take a couple zeros off that, it's the difference, right? Yeah, it was that net difference of his net worth and his, what is it, like his earnings or something? So I don't know how it works. His gross worth and his net worth was exactly 1 million plus 118,000. Yeah. Basically take a zero off it and you have the ransom note. Yeah. And just like when you think about how long it would have taken that note to write, it just seems so bizarre kind of thing. And that Patsy's handwriting could not actually be excluded from being the handwriting. But again, I'm going to be coming back around. I think that was a huge thing in the press later, was when she couldn't be excluded from that. Man, that right there, it was like on your notepad with your pen, you can't be excluded. And she was just basically theoretically hog-tied and hung up, Yeah. It did not, like, the media really ran away with this case. And I think it's a big part of, like, why we know the main things that we know. And then, of course, like I mentioned before, when he found the body, he picked her up, he removed the duct tape, tried to remove the rope, meaning that basically gives a reason for his fingerprints or any trace DNA. I mean, it's 1996, so they don't really know about trace DNA yet, but they know about just general DNA. But it gives a reason for this evidence, and any kind of, his hairs or whatever to be there, sort of thing, especially on things that it wouldn't have made sense, like the duct tape. Well, and you're like, okay, so is that a grieving father just reacting, or is that someone reacting to cover up their tracks, right? So again, Team Ramsey, Team not Ramsey. Right, because it's like, it could easily be a natural, you're not thinking about evidence, because you're still thinking, in theory, you're thinking, that she's kidnapped, you're not knowing she's already been murdered. Mm-hmm. In theory, you're thinking that she's alive, and so you found her, and you see duct tape on her mouth and you're like, she needs to be able to breathe. And you see this rope and you're, frantically trying to remove it. There's a cop upstairs. So now you just grab her and run her up the stairs in the hopes that somebody else can help, kind of thing.
Yeah.
Like,
okay, there is one thing I want to back up real quick. Before they found her and they thought she had been kidnapped, do you think it's odd? So one thing that struck with me is they were supposed to call at 10 o'clock. The ransom people were supposed to call, said, have the money ready, be by the phone, be physically prepared because it's going to be
exhausting. Yeah.
Yeah. And so if it were me, and everybody does it differently, I suppose, but I would think that if it was me, I'd be watching that clock for 10 o'clock, right? I'd be waiting to see if they call at 10 o'clock. And there was a cop who was like, so 10 o'clock came and went and no one noticed. Like no one said anything about the fact that the time had passed. I don't understand that. I mean, I know that.
See, but I also wondered because I also noted, and I saw others note that like the note does not make it clear what day that 8 to 10 a.m. phone call was supposed to, because it's like, if the note was left by an intruder and the intruder does not know what time they were getting up and that they were getting up so early to go on this flight, then why would they know that they'd be up and see this and be able to be prepared? How would they have the money in time for an 8 to 10 a.m. phone call on the day after Christmas? Banks haven't opened yet. Like, so there's like a lot of speculation that it could have been interpreted easily as we're going to call tomorrow on the 27th. And so that's, so maybe it's like, we're kind of like waiting. Maybe they mean today, but maybe they actually mean tomorrow. Wouldn't tomorrow make more sense? And so maybe they're sort of rationalizing immediately of like, okay, call hasn't come through. It's probably just because they meant tomorrow. That just confirms they meant tomorrow, not today. Like you're trying to tell you, like, to play both sides again, to present both sides of that.
So now this is an interesting take. I actually didn't even consider this. But I do find it odd that Patsy said that her son was asleep upstairs. He never woke up. But then there was like contradiction in that. And then also neighbors were saying they heard screaming or fighting or whatever, and the kids slept through it. I mean, and why wouldn't you run up and check on your other kid, or wake up your other kid through all this? So none of that really jived with me. But I never even thought of that as an option.
Oh, yeah. No, I've seen that theory a lot.
I didn't see
and I'm going to come
theory.
back around for sure. Oh, yeah. I've come back around. Yeah.
But I will say this was Adriana's turn to really dive in. So this was very much,
She's
showing me stuff I had not seen yet.
Yeah, I went deep into this. And she did go into Burke's room to check that he was in there and check that he was there. And a cop also went into the room and checked. Supposedly Burke didn't wake up, but also like Burke has said that like he kind of remembers those things. But I can also imagine if you don't know what's going on, it's 5:45 in the morning or whatever, or 6 in the morning, the day after Christmas, and people are coming in, but not forcing you to get up. And you were told like, oh, we're going to have to get up early to go do this thing. It's like, cool, I get to keep sleeping. Like, like if he doesn't know what's going on, this is a 3 stories in a basement house. That's a big ass house to not be able to hear, all the like rushed, frantic conversations that are going on the main floor or whatever.
Now, this was something that did come up. I don't know if there's been I do remember reading this in my research, but I don't know if that actually, I don't know the validity of that.
So I straight up bought the stupid CBS documentary where they did all this audio, and I'm saying stupid because it is just so obnoxiously biased and full of crap. Like they so purposely twist things and like leave really obvious things out just to like make their little points. And it's just really,
that?
I know, it's shocking, but it's just like, cause at the beginning you're like, oh, it's a retired FBI guy and this chick from Scotland Yard. Like this should be pretty interesting. It is so annoying. But so they do all this like audio stuff to try and hear some like clippets in the background. I think it only convinces you if you've already made your decision of who did it. That's the only way it convinces you. If you sent those audio out to 100 people who had no idea what they were in response to, most people I think would say, I can't even make out a voice or like the words that are being said. And yet they say, oh, it's Patsy saying this. Then Burke says this. And then John says this. And it's like, I listened to it over and over and over with their words. They put on the screen the words that you're supposedly hearing. Yeah. And I'm like, I'm sorry, I don't hear it. Like, so it's a real stretch.
Did the audio specialist go in and create that? Or was this like a reporter that did it?
No, this was audio. Like they had an audio engineer going through. Yeah. So this is all after, when Patsy made the 911 call and went to hang up, she didn't actually, catch the cradle all the way. Mm-hmm. So there's a few extra seconds that were caught in the 911 call recording. That's what Nick is clarifying here. And so at the end, they did a lot of audio engineering to try and see if they could make sense of what was being said. And maybe Patsy's saying, oh, my Jesus, or help me, Jesus. Maybe Burke says, what did you find? Maybe, supposedly, like, I don't even hear a child's voice. Otherwise, like the actual words he says, like it is so, just kind of insanely difficult to make anything out and
I tried
could be skewed anyway.
I tried to get the transcript on that because sometimes I can, and I was not able. Everything is so tightly wrapped on this one that some of the usual methods that I use to go in and see things couldn't even come close to some of this stuff. It's like Fort Knox.
Yeah. It's like, it is crazy hard to get like the clear primary source, information kind of thing. So it's like, you have to get a lot of it out of interviews with detectives that were there or medical examiner, like you have to get it so much from that as opposed to actual primary source. So other issues are, and you kind of mentioned about like some of the inconsistencies with what like JonBenet said. So there was like some mix up of what JonBenet was even wearing. Like, did they change her when she got home, or did they not change her, or was she wearing that at the Christmas party? Like that kind of goes back and forth. Yeah. Whether or not Patsy, when she woke up, went and checked the rooms, saw that JonBenet was missing, and then walked down the stairs and found the ransom note, or if she found the ransom note and then ran to JonBenet's room to see that she was missing. Like she says it both ways, which is bizarre.
She said it both ways, but I could see how that would happen, right? Your memory, the first time you're so shocked when you're telling the story, you're just like, and then the second time things have faded and people have said things and to me was just a minute switch. I didn't put a lot of stock into that.
For me, it was weird because I just would think you would remember checking the room, like that you were checking it in just like your casual, like, oh, is everybody still asleep? Or were you checking it in like, oh my God, I just got a note saying she's missing, like, and you're right, like I would have thought that that'd be more clear, but you're right. Like if she made one, the initial version initially when she was like drugged or whatever and freaking out and just saying things in a weird order, it could just be that another weird mix up like that.
Of course, the cops went, hey, but you said this. At that point, it would trigger you, right? You'd be like, oh, okay, sorry, no, I did this and then that, because you would remember that where you were at when that point of panic hit.
Right, yeah. Yeah, it's like, okay, wait, let me get this clear in my head. Or now it's been 4 months and now it's even less clear in my head because that's how long it's been before really talking to the cops. So, what did he, then it was downstairs in bedroom. Yeah. So, and then another one of these things is the pineapple. And so there was a bowl of pineapple at the scene, and multiple times, and even after this evidence has come forth, they have reiterated they put her straight to bed. She did not stop and eat anything. Yet there was a bowl of pineapple at the scene that had Burke's fingerprints and Burke being her brother, her 9-year-old brother, and Patsy's fingerprints on it. They were told that she did not eat anything, yet there was pineapple in her stomach that indicated that it had been eaten between like 8 and 11 p.m.
Yeah, it wasn't digested. It was in the upper GI tract.
Right. So it's like, it's very, they can trace back to about when that occurred. And this is the thing where I wrote, because once I saw the documentary, I was like, nope, all right, you're all right. I throwing every logic out the window. I'm on your side. Burke absolutely did it only because he poured milk in his pineapple. Like he's got a bowl of chunks of pineapple. This is just so bizarre to me. And there's milk. He poured milk. He's like eating it like it's cereal. And I'm like, only a murderer would do that. Clearly, you're all right. All of Reddit is correct because he poured milk. Like, I'm on your side now.
Oh my gosh.
And just kidding, Burke. That's
so
a joke.
He went downstairs and got some milk and poured it on his pineapple.
Yeah. Well, like, why?
No.
Why would that be a good idea? That is so gross.
For sure.
And there's, like some other things of, just in general, statistically, it's most likely someone you know. There was that scream that was heard across the street around midnight, but apparently the parents, nor Burke, heard it. She did have urine on her pants and underwear and was known to have a bedwetting problem. So, could this have been the cause of some kind of anger in the night? There is also...
Go ahead, sorry.
Oh, yeah. No, go ahead.
Thinking about the urine in that was a big thing too, is people are like, there must be something going on at home because she was significantly getting worse with her bedwetting. And then she started there was fecal matter they were finding. And there were times during the day when she would urinate in her pants. So people took that as it must be something bad going on at home. Now, do I think that there was definitely something going on with this girl? Absolutely. Do I have any clue what it is? No. Right.
Yeah. Like, does that actually prove who was causing this problem? Yeah. So, and apparently, according to the housekeeper, and I do think Burke did not like his sister very much, she was getting a lot of the attention and everything. And a lot of behavioral analysts have said that. I don't think that means he did anything. I just think, the pineapple and milk thing, that makes you more guilty. But apparently, according to the housekeeper, he was putting the poop in her, he had put a huge turd in her bed.
Really?
Yeah, so it was not her. So she had this bedwetting issue, but the poop,
picking up poop and putting it in there.
Yeah, yeah, okay, so which is definitely a terrifying red flag kind of thing. Boys do weird things, but that's really extreme. So,
and he was only 2 years younger than her, right?
He was 3 years older. He was 9 and she was 6.
Okay, you're right. And it depends on when the birthday falls. It was 2. Yeah. So he's picking up her poop? Where'd he get her poop?
I think it was his. I don't know that they know because it's this was reported by the housekeeper. It's not she kept it to give them a sample and so it's she found this and I think she knew Burke did it or whatever, but they can't really say whose poop it was, but that was definitely a thing. Yeah, I think, especially with all that pageant stuff, she got a lot of the attention and he was probably not enjoying that. I don't think they had any, but no pets were ever mentioned in any of the different things I looked at. So I don't think they had any pets.
Well, and then you got he's probably you have all this attention, you're doing all this. And then some people reported that she was starting to kind of push back with her aunt and her mom not wanting to do the pageants. So I could see some brother going, oh, great, you got all this attention and now you don't want to do the pageants, you little shit.
Yeah. Yeah, it's and you're being a brat about it too kind of thing. Yeah, I could see that being I think, there's plenty of possibility that he was sick of her crap or whatever. But
well, and then there's also I feel siblings, no matter what, are going to have these things that everybody focused on. Well, JonBenet was going to she could be a brat. Look at her over here throwing a temper tantrum, stomping her feet. That's what kids do.
Right. They have fits. My brother and I could not stand each other when we were growing up. For the vast majority of our childhood, could not stand each other. Yeah. Did not mean,
fits for both of us for no reason.
There you go. So one of the other big things.
There was a dog named Jock. So maybe
Yeah, I haven't heard anything about a dog is the thing.
Yeah, I don't
So,
know.
but, I mean, yeah. Because it's like then people would have mentioned about like, oh, why didn't the dog bark or whatever kind of thing. Like if there was an intruder or, you know, like, I don't know. So one of the other big things is a flashlight. So in the initial pictures of the crime scene, you can see a flashlight on the table. But hey, Katie. But later, and the fracture that's on her skull looks like it could match this flashlight shape.
Yeah.
However, then initially in evidence, there was no flashlight.
It was in the
but then a year,
bag. No.
right? I guess. But then a year later, they did like a evidence review and they found the flashlight. And then but no trace evidence was found on this flashlight. Also, if you've seen the flashlight and considering how incompetent like the initial crime scene stuff was,
right?
I honestly think it was a cop's. Like it's that big black, you know, long flashlight.
Yeah.
That like no non-law enforcement person, like it's just a weird flashlight for you to have if you're not a cop, you know, like it has that very long handle. So, but well, I mean, like maybe they did.
They didn't know at first that there was the head injury because it didn't show. There was
right. There's no blood. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, he says,
Bichon Frise. Yeah. Sorry.
I did hear that. Actually, no. Now that he says that. Because I remember I just inherited one.
Yeah.
And is it Bichon Frise or is it Bichon Frise? And when I looked it up and I listened to audio transcripts, someone talked about their Bichon Frise. So there was a dog.
I wonder if they used to have one, but didn't still have it at the time of the murder or something.
It sounded like it.
I wonder if maybe they used to, but didn't, you know, still have it at that time or something. Because like literally I have dug into this quite a lot. And that's I like maybe, but
I can remember
like I would think it would get brought up a lot as far as the intruder theory kind of thing is my thing. Like
I don't know, some people
would bring up the dog
at night. It could have been on the 6,000 square feet that way. I mean, I don't know.
Yeah, but I feel like it would be brought up kind of thing.
Look at all this wonderful knowledge.
Gave him to the lady across the street, the one who heard the scream.
That's where
But when did they give it?
Say yes, it was the woman. She said that her dog didn't make any noise.
Hers. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. But she heard a scream. Yeah. So she heard a scream at midnight, woke up her husband. He didn't hear the scream, but he heard like metal against concrete. And another neighbor around the same time saw like some odd lights on.
Was it the same neighbor? Now, this I don't know. There was a neighbor that had the Bichon Frise. Is that the same neighbor that heard the scream? That's what I would be curious because there's a lot of freaking neighbors, but yet they're all far apart.
Yeah, yeah. So I mean, you got a 6,500,
so much info
square foot house. Yeah. So some people have an issue that there was no like footprints outside to support the idea that an outsider could have come in. I do want to point out, and like that there's snow on the ground. There's no footprints in the snow. There would be no footprints in the mud. It's freaking December in Colorado. It's frozen. And when you look at the pictures of the exterior of the house, there's not much snow to be leaving footprints in, especially like the sidewalks, the driveway. There's like, you could easily approach the house and not leave a footprint. So like right straight away, I'm dismissing the footprint one. It's kind of pointless. Oh,
that's a good
monster in the way. Yeah.
Like I said, there's so many. You can say this and you can counter it with that and then counter that with this. And it's insane. Yeah. Yeah. And then one of the last big pieces was the window. So that like the window that if it was an intruder that they could have gotten in, there was a window that in the basement that there was a pane knocked out. There's no glass found around. And John Ramsey explained that it had been like a year since he broke that window to get in because he had locked himself out and he never got it fixed. And I've seen that like maybe it's because like he repeatedly, I'm like the same type, like back when I was growing up, I used to do that a lot, like where it was like I constantly lock myself out or whatever. So it was nice to have a way to let myself back in. So, so this was a thing. And it was a small window
but also that implies he could get through that window. Yet people try to imply you couldn't fit a person through that window. So he could get through.
Know. It's weird, right?
And yeah, and there was a cobweb in this window. And so I do have a couple little pictures of, so this is the window in question. It's that one slightly more to the right. In this picture, the pane has been fixed, but one of those panes was broken and you could reach in and open the window. And then this is the little cobweb that's in the corner of that window. So this isn't like a huge cobweb, but there is this cobweb in the corner. And the idea being like, if you were squeezing through the window, that, yeah, I know. Can you just get a fake rock? It was the 90s. Everybody had a fake rock with a key in it.
Well, and then you were like, oh, no one has a key but the housekeeper and us. And then it was like, oh, and that person had one and that person had one. And all of a sudden, all these people had keys.
Yeah, yeah. It's like, but so there's this idea that like you couldn't get through that window, especially without disturbing the cobweb. So that's like another issue. And I'm going to come back around. But to kind of summarize some of the biggest pieces, I made like a little graphic. It might be hard to see on y'all's phones. But, you know, just to kind of reiterate some of these, you've got the ransom note that was very long. The handwriting, Patsy's handwriting couldn't be cleared from it. The weird number for the ransom, matching with his previous Christmas bonus. The fact that she wasn't actually kidnapped. The fact that they didn't have a on oath, on record interview with the cops until 4 months afterwards. And then, but they did have an interview with CNN a week after, on January 1st, 1997. And just in general, like when you watch any of their, yeah, like, oh, they've done a ton, which is just weird to me. But I guess, you know, like that's, you know, you do you. But also just like John just comes off super cold and kind of suspicious.
No,
and then
Fleet didn't find her. Actually, John found her, and he came up the stairs holding her like this.
Yeah, Fleet was with John when he found her, but John was the one who entered the room first and found her.
But who finds their daughter they've been looking for, and they walk up the stairs like this? That's so weird.
Whose name is Fleet? Who names their kid Fleet? Bigger issues here.
Fleet.
I'm very upset about his name being Fleet and the milk with the pineapple. Like, two most disturbing facts. But also, yeah, so the dad found the body, and so the body was there, and he disturbed all this evidence and moved it immediately and went directly to it, kind of thing, when they were told to search. The window was small and had this cobweb and this bit of pineapple sort of thing. So I just kind of wanted to have that as like a bit of a summary. And I think some of the other contributing factors, especially media-wise, that you can't like skip over is, and I'm stupid, I haven't shown the obvious thing. This is who JonBenet was. This was her last Christmas. There she is with Burke. She got a new bike. She's just like a normal, cute little 6-year-old girl sort of thing. But, you know, the media mostly just showed the pageant pictures. And you saw a lot of those types of pictures. And so that did not help the parents, you know, reputation and sort of how we saw them kind of thing.
Like that show Dance Moms or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and then one of the neighbors that they accused, actually, they were such good friends that those neighbors hid that bike at their home until Christmas.
Mm. Yeah. And then still. Yeah. Yeah. But I think it's like, once something like that has happened, it's like the gloves are off. It doesn't matter. You know, it's like, you know, you'll throw anybody under the bus if you think like there's any possibility, you know, like you get to that point of being willing to not trust anyone and think that anybody did it. Yes, exactly. Yes, case closed. Milk plus pineapple. You did it. Only a murderer would do that. But so here's where I kind of want to start pointing out, like leading up to the murder, just like in the week before the murder, like this family and JonBenet did have a lot of exposure to other people kind of thing. So the week before was when his company was in the newspaper for reaching this $1 billion value.
Right.
Just 3 days before the murder, JonBenet formed in a Christmas show at the mall, you know, and she's all dolled up and sang in it. And then she was on a float that had her name on the side of it in the Christmas parade.
Oh yeah, her grandpa made that float.
Yeah.
That's so
yeah. And it's like, it's, sweet in theory, but not a great idea.
why
Like,
couldn't your kid be on a float?
you can be on a float with a bunch of other kids as part of your high school band or something, not as like you yourself all dolled up with just your name specifically put big on the side of the float as a 6-year. I don't like. Ugh.
That's what baby pageants are all about. I don't get it.
I know nope. I like just the idea of them is horrifying. 2 days before there was a Christmas party at the house. And so they had like, a bunch of people come over.
Yeah.
Who JonBenet was interacting with and everything. And and then of course on Christmas Day, they went over to a Christmas party at his buddy's. I think it was at Fleet and Priscilla's house.
Oh, was it?
Who were Fleet and Priscilla White were their names. Like it is the yuppiest of names.
Fleet, I'm sorry. I'm sorry, Fleet.
Right. I'm sure you're great people, hopefully. But, then she fell asleep on the way home and came home. So, but like those are a lot of, just in that week before, a lot of exposure of the family, how much money they make, and of her, plus she's already, been doing pageants for at least a year or two. Mm-hmm. So there's been a lot of exposure kind of thing to others, a lot of opportunities for outsiders to become interested in her. So this is why I wanted to start coming around to what are the other possibilities. So mom and dad got her gifts for Christmas.
Why would a lot of exposure for her anyway, just being his daughter? I mean, like there's always articles being written around about him, and they're part of this high society in Colorado. It seems like there would be a lot. I think
also Boulder wasn't as about that as like Atlanta was. So they were actually already struggling with kind of, like them having that sort of like debutante sort of thing, but that's not really like the vibe in Boulder. I definitely think like the pageantry and her, performing at shows and stuff, exposed her to a lot of, and I mean, like, I'll get to it when we get to suspects, but there's a photographer who was a photographer of hers and who did the pageants, who is now in prison for child porn. In 2019, he was arrested and went to prison for child porn. Like, so it's like, there's no doubt about it that there was, there's no doubt about it. It did, throw those children into the paths of potential pedophiles. So this is where I kind of want to start coming back. I showed that summary of all of that, some of those key things. And I want to give some of the other potential explanations / details about those. So if, the fact that the ransom note was very long, and I mentioned it earlier, if there was an intruder, they were out at this Christmas party for a long period of time. The intruder had plenty of time to prepare, to think about this, and to sit there and write it. Bless you. Kind of thing. So sorry. If it's a coworker or somebody who's, been listening around the house to the housekeeper, whatever, because they've become obsessed with JonBenet, they could easily have learned about their Christmas Day plan. Everybody talks about what they're doing for Christmas. Yeah. So it wouldn't be hard to find out your Christmas plan. Her handwriting was not, couldn't be proven as not the handwriting, but she scored a 4.5 out of 5. And it's not just her who said that. You hear her say that in interviews, but Lou Smith, also a detective on the case, confirms that, which he clarifies basically means that there's a 90% chance it was not her handwriting.
Oh.
So analysts couldn't.
You never heard that
say right. Nobody talks about that. I already touched on the 118,000. That was not that current one. That was from his previous, like last year's Christmas bonus. It had been on every single pay stub. Again, that could have easily been discussed over the past year and been mentioned to people. You mentioned it to friends. You mentioned it to coworkers. The housekeeper heard it. Like lots of people. Also, by the way, the housekeeper and her husband, their DNA was checked. They were cleared. So I'm just mentioning her as another potential source of information.
That means
like some of the suspects, I'm like, why you got to go after these people? Yeah, but I get it. You got to go after everybody. Yeah. The CNN interview being 1 week after, and the cops, like they admit they shouldn't have done that. They were following lawyers' advice with this. it makes sense that a bunch of rich people immediately hire a lawyer. And the cops did say, like, absolutely, you can take the time to go bury your daughter, and knowing that this was going to be in Atlanta. And I can see if you're innocent and you're in Atlanta with your family, it's hard for you to get yourself to go back to Boulder and be in that environment.
Yeah.
I disagree. So we are going to be on disagreeing because I love loose mint. So just cold behavior, whatever. That he found the body. We kind of covered that. Like, that's not an unnatural reaction to want to pick it up. Being told top to bottom was more of like the expression, and it made sense to go straight to the basement as the least searched place so far. The window / cobweb. The window was not so small that it would be so difficult for a 66-year-old Lou Smith to like climb through it, and he was able to get through. And you can easily imagine like a lean, athletic person being able to just hop through there without disturbing the cobweb. Pineapple, have you never like, oh, I'm going to bed and I'm going to sleep, and then like tiptoed down and grab some bits of pineapple or whatever quick snack from the fridge? Like, for sure. That's a no-go right there. So it's like some of these things, I'm not totally discarding all of these items. I'm just saying, like, it may not be as definitive of evidence against them as initially like portrayed, sort of thing.
For sure. Yeah.
Also, what's often not mentioned initially in like a lot of the things, like, you know, that I didn't know about for the longest time, was that there was DNA found in her underwear, on the like and it's on the interior of her underwear, then on the exterior of her long johns, and on the finger, like underneath her fingernails. And these were matching profiles.
They didn't find anything under their nails, so they eventually did, huh?
Yeah, they have, and all those DNA profiles do match. Also, there was a footprint from a high-tech boot found like in the wine cellar room that her body was found in. Nobody in the house, at least currently at that point in time, owned a boot a high-tech boot. Though that was a very common boot, but like at least everybody who was at that scene that morning was not, you know, all the other people who were there or whatever, were not wearing high-tech boots either. And also there's marks on her body that appear to be, I'm trying to remove it, that appear to be from a stun gun. And again, that's one of those things that different medical examiners can interpret different ways, but plenty do think that those appear to be marks of a stun gun, which again doesn't really match with the idea that the Ramseys did it.
So okay, here's a question though. So what that theory would be is they zapped her with a stun gun. They made that, what do you call that? They had a paintbrush with the rope around it that you twist. What's that called?
Yeah, the garrote.
The garrote, yeah. They used the garrote and they hit her in the head. And somewhere along there was some stuff down there that shouldn't have happened. That's a lot to say all happened. I mean, with no one hearing anything. I don't know. That's a lot for me to swallow.
In the basement, when the parents are like, this happened in the basement, the parents are on the 4th floor and Burke's on the, fourth level, 3rd floor above ground. I'm not used to these big ass houses or whatever. I'm like, I don't know. 4th floor, whatever. 4th level.
Like a rare breed, for crying out loud.
Right, exactly. I've got my Knob Creek and I've got rare breed ready so that I can join you. But, so like, I think it is totally reasonable that in that big of a house, something could happen downstairs and you don't hear anything upstairs, on the 4th floor or whatever kind of deal. So it's like, I can see that happening and the parents not waking up. But like, does it totally make sense? Well, having said that, they got a bunch of exposure. Reorient myself.
Skipped around. Sorry.
Convective in the chat already brought up Lou Smith, but I feel like you can't really mention the intruder theory without mentioning Lou Smith. So Lou Smith was a Colorado detective who had retired before this case, but had solved a lot of murders in Colorado and been involved on some high profile cases. And so he actually came out of retirement, upon request, like they asked if, to get his help. He came out of retirement and helped with this case. Although after about 18 months, I think he actually resigned from the case because he was getting a lot of pushback from the other detectives on any possibility outside of the rim. He felt like the department was very much zeroed in on the Ramsey family, which isn't to say that they didn't investigate other people, obviously, but he felt like, they were being dismissive and very focused in on things. So the paracord that was wrapped around her arms and used for the garrote, no matching paracord was found in the house. The duct tape did not match a roll of duct tape in the house. We have the high-tech boot print, this stun gun. But for me, a big one is that DNA. The pediatrician insisted that there was no evidence or suspicions of previous abuse or long-term abuse. She did have urinary tract infections, and maybe that contributed or was contributed by the bedwetting issue kind of thing. And if she's, laying in urine for a long period of time or something, that might contribute to it. So it's like, he didn't think that had been like a long-term thing as far as, in theory, if John was doing something or something.
It doesn't even have to be John. It could be,
right, somebody close or whatever kind of, and, and also like when you think about how much evidence was lost because of that incredibly poor initial, crime scene preservation, was just such a shit job.
You said the black electrical tape didn't match or whatever, and then there was the painting of JonBenet above her bed or her desk or whatever. There was a gorgeous portrait, of her. And then somewhere I read that later down the road, that same black tape was on the back of that portrait. And I could not find anywhere that substantiated that, but there was a whole thing about that in a book and also in, what was that book? It was a book written in about 2016, and I couldn't find anywhere that backed it up, but that would be odd if it's true.
Yeah.
I can't see it being in
it would be bizarre. Yeah, I don't think the pediatric records have been released, but just that the pediatrician himself stated, there's a clip of him stating that he absolutely refutes, I think those were his words, the idea that she had been a victim, at least long-term kind of thing, previously to this, of any kind of sexual abuse. So it's
if you have that much money, if you bump around your pediatric, physicians or
yeah, it's that's the thing. It's could you, could he potentially been, but again, and I purposely didn't even write notes. I didn't want to read it or hear it myself. The, actual details of her trauma, but nothing implied that it was particularly long-term kind of thing. As far as that goes,
that piece of it, because A, there's no proof, there's speculation. Right. And B, I think that that's a whole different animal. When you're talking about that, right. I think there should be substantial proof that you can grasp onto if you're ever going to accuse anybody of doing something.
Absolutely.
Of killing someone or anything, but I think there's a whole different game there.
Yeah. And if anything, I think the idea, if it is true that something like that happened, I think that actually lends itself to the theory then that it was an intruder as opposed to a cover up by a parent, because it's one thing to cover up if she had gotten injured by a parent or there's multiple theories on this, and so they're covering up her murder. It's another thing to assault a live child to cover something up or to have done that. Those are two very far away things, I think.
Yeah.
So Convective was saying, let's stay in order. So again, a lot of evidence could have been lost, but this DNA for me is a big deal. And the stun gun marks to a point. Some argue about whether they really are stun gun marks, but they are a very particular distance. Lou Smith had gotten a forensic pathologist to do a bunch of tests of a bunch of different stun guns on like anesthetized pigs so that you could actually really, compare. And the distance actually really well matched, and the marks matched a particular type of stun gun is what he found. So it's like they do match up, and how those marks, might be more, end up kind of charring more on more delicate skin of a child might explain that they seem a little bit more burnt than like a normal stun gun mark would have. So I will fight on this one because this was brought up in that CBS documentary because Henry Lee, who's a very well respected, but also the way they edit, if you pay attention, he doesn't say directly any of the kind of nonsense they try to imply. He does a test proving that you can grab a packaged bit of underwear and do a DNA test, and you could find foreign DNA from somebody working at the manufacturing company. The DNA that was found in her underwear was on the inside of her underwear, on the outside of her pants, and under her fingernails. I'm sorry. It is, as a molecular biologist, it is highly unlikely that DNA would transfer to all those places and that you would have enough to detect. As somebody who has run multiple PCRs, who does this, who has to deal with degradation of DNA. So you're telling me it's not in a stable buffer, it's not being frozen. Like, it is highly unlikely that DNA, Nick's like, uh-oh.
She's fired up. She's fired up, folks.
The Puerto Rican is going. It is highly unlikely that it could transfer that well to so many places. Like, you do have to consider what is the, as opposed to making everything fit into a theory that you initially think. And that's what I was doing at the beginning 2 weeks ago. I was on board. I was like, Patsy wrote that freaking ransom note. Nick and I were watching a documentary, and I just kept giving him like little side marks of like, she wrote it, they did it, it was him. Like, so I was on board, but then I dug into all of this and found all these details. It does not fit. What fits and makes much more sense is that it is an intruder's DNA, and that they left that boot mark, that they used a stun gun, that it's under her fingernails. That is actually what fits the evidence, as opposed to the very circumstantial of who she is, how they appear, the weird way that they say things, the, weird ransom note kind of thing. I think you have to take like the facts as opposed to just what we think and what is implied.
I think there's a couple different things. I'm not gonna fight with you on this. I am gonna say that if we want to go into what could be, let's look at the fact that it could be that this child was going through some things and went to the parents. They didn't take it well, and there was an issue. And so there's two separate issues going on. It could be that there was a friend of the family during these Christmas parties and these other things that were doing some things, and then shit went sideways and that happened. It could be that dad was doing some things and shit happened. There's like so many different scenarios, and everything was so corrupted. I don't think we're ever going to know exactly what happened.
I don't think we'll ever know.
Everybody from the beat cop to the district attorney, everyone, the victim advocates, they all dropped the ball in so many ways. And it breaks my heart for this child, because we are talking about a child, and it's easy to be like, the brother did it, or the mother did it, or a stranger did it. But the bottom line is, we as a community or whomever fucked this up. We did. We didn't get the justice.
Like, I think without a confession that had like at least some kind of supporting evidence to prove it, we'll never actually know what happened. But obviously, like, there are a lot of theories. I think actually one that Convective mentioned earlier is a pretty common one. And honestly, kind of what I was initially leaning towards was that maybe she like reached for some pineapple that he was eating or just did something that annoyed him. And it was late at night and he was tired and there was a flashlight and he was like, no, don't, like, don't touch it. Leave me alone. And like just whacked her on the head with the flashlight, not meaning to actually cause severe damage, but it did. And then maybe the parents covered that up. That is like a very common and popular theory that fits some of that.
Freaking rope?
Yeah, that's my thing is like, man, y'all really went a little extra on trying to cut like, yeah, but it's like, maybe if you're being so crazy with the ransom note and quoting all these movies, then maybe you saw the garrote thing in a movie too. And you're like, this ties really well with like a foreign faction doing this or whatever. The screen or glass that was pushed out from the house. The letter was clearly Patty. Writing sample comparisons prove that it's 90% likely she did not write it actually. And the screen or glass of the basement was pushed out from the house. Yeah. So there's a thing on top that I don't have a picture of that you have to lift up. So it could only come out from outside the basement. So even like when Lou Smith does in a thing in the Katie Couric, which I have the link to in the description, when he opens that up, you have to open it away and then get into there to get to that. It's a weird way to get to this window, but he shows you could do it from the outside. That thing would be pointed away. The window was pulled open towards the end. It's the only way it could open. And I definitely think I have a picture of Lou Smith getting into the window. I don't have a picture from the outside of this grate that I'm talking about that's behind it, but this is Lou Smith going through that window. So obviously like he's filling it up, but he quickly and easily does this, like, climbs in. And I just have this picture. He's always mentioned John Mike Carr he confessed, but was proven not to have done it. But look how skinny this little bean is. I think some creeper who is that skinny, I don't think it was him, but could easily have then gone through that window and not hit the cobweb kind of thing. Like if Lou Smith could do it at 66 kind of thing, like, I think a young lean bean could definitely go through that window and not have knocked out the cobweb.
I feel like this is amazing.
Can you say that for sure?
You and I are usually on the same page, and I feel like we're not. Mm-hmm. And I find that fascinating. And
is a good one.
It's not that I'm not on the same page. It's that I truly don't know what page I'm on. But I do.
It took me a while to accept, like, for me, it took a while to transition. It's not like I saw these bits of evidence and immediately it was like, oh, well, shit, now my mind's changed. It was like, I was still like, I was like, I don't know. Maybe there's an explanation. But it's like the more days I spent thinking about it and then like, seeing sort of supporting stuff, I was like, it's just when you start thinking about potential routes of explanation, to me, there's more holes in the family doing it and trying to explain the weird bits of evidence like the DNA, the stun gun marks, the high-tech footprint. Yeah.
Do you feel like it wouldn't be that way had everything not been so corrupted? I mean, there's some shady behavior that went on and no one deals with something like this perfectly. There's all these different ways you can react. I get that. However, my daughter died and I want my golf bag in the dead of winter. Go get that. Or I want my black jeans that I wore the night of that. And I'm 1,500 miles away and I have a credit card. Why would I want those jeans? There was just so many weird things. And like the things that were said differently later. And then the lack of crime scene containment. I'm not saying the parents did it. I'm saying that had they secured that scene and not given all this shit to the parents, maybe there would be less holes in the story.
How would that explain the DNA inside of her underwear? That's not crime scene contamination.
Do we not?
It's like things like that.
Right. But do we not know? And trust me, I am not saying the parents did it, but I have to, I'm looking at all the possibilities. Could it be that there's DNA there? Maybe there was something bad going on with a photographer or a piano teacher or whatever. Mm-hmm. Dad finds out or brother finds out or mom finds out. Someone freaks out. Something maybe it's two different situations. Or maybe this got contaminated too, because we were throwing blankets on her, we were grabbing her, we were putting sweatshirts over her feet, we were moving the body. There's a lot of different ways that something that had DNA on it over here could end up over here. Just a thought.
Ish. But if you think about it, and I'm in like, because this is exactly what I had to do to myself, of like, I was very much the same of, oh man, like she says this thing that is weird. She, like the way this thing is written, Convective mentioned about like how dramatic Patsy was. And that note was like very, and handwriting, like linguist or whatever on the CBS documentary. I really don't like that documentary, but I will admit they have some professionals and interesting interviews and stuff. But I also think you have to watch it knowing how much stuff they're leaving out and how much bias they are introducing. That the handwriting, like not just the handwriting, but the way it's written is very much the way a woman, like, they study this sort of thing where they can kind of blindly identify whether a woman wrote something or a man wrote something. Like we tend to write different ways, we tend to talk different ways or whatever. And, they say, it seems like, so there's like a lot of things, but all of those things are very non-tangible and not real. It's like, because Patsy says weird things, does weird things, because she's different. You're like, I'm 100% not the type of person who's like, oh my God, I have to have this outfit this day, and I have to wear a different outfit every day, and I have to have my makeup. And Patsy was known for like, I need to wear she always has her outfit on fleek, and it's very much about your physical appearance. So it's hard for me I always have to try and set aside my personal perspective. Of like, like, oh, that rubs me the wrong way. Like, why are they so obsessed with it? Because it's like, because some people are, and that is their comfort zone.
Yeah, absolutely.
And maybe when you're grieving, it's like, I just need things that are familiar. Like, I absolutely do have a favorite pair of jeans and a favorite pair of pajama pants that had I gone to,
your favorite
Atlanta.
If all this happened when you were wearing them, would you want them again to wear? Like, enough?
No, not if something happened.
Friends?
Yeah. But it's like, if like I have Nick will tell you, my Hufflepuff freaking pajama pants are the comfiest pajama pants. If I am grieving or upset, I need to be wearing my Hufflepuff pajama pants, or I will be 10 times more upset. Like, bring me that. God. Like, or I need my beautiful bubble butt Women of Whiskey's retro glass. Like
the Women of Whiskey's bubble butt retro glass. It's the
go-to glass. Like, so it's like there are things where it's like, are some things that people are doing and saying, they just seem like red flags, but does it actually prove anything? And is that just making us trying to fit theories? So
yeah,
before we even continue with it, also thank you, Convective. I knew that from all the Reddit stuff that has come up in my research, but for the clarification, when you do see BDI or IDI, BDI is the initials for Burke did it, because generally the thought, as far as the Ramsey is doing it, is that it's pretty much implied that maybe it was Burke. Some imply that maybe Patsy, like if there was a wed bedding accident, after enough rare breed and upgrade, it becomes wed bedding. Maybe she just lost it and again hit her on the head, and then everything else was to cover up. So many different. And those guesses could be all completely wrong, but it could have been one of those people. Maybe it was John. Maybe it was an autoerotic asphyxiation type of thing with the garrote. I mean, the garrote is a bizarre cover-up route to go. But my thing is, I think, and a lot of times what detectives will say, just from what I've seen with interviews of detectives in any case, is to apply Occam's razor and what's the simplest explanation that fits the evidence you have.
Yeah.
And I believe to try and explain the DNA and where it is actually found, and the way she was killed.
Yeah.
They fit to me, like those bits of like physical bits of evidence fit better with the idea of a pedophile who became aware of her, whether it be through the pageants, whether it be through Christmas show, whether it be through whatever kind of thing, who, maybe came into the house earlier, had all the time in the world to write this long, ridiculous, dramatic ransom note. They were convinced that they were in love with her and they were going to take her away with them. Things didn't go the way they wanted, and they ended up accidentally killing her or purposely killing her there. but left the ransom note anyways. Maybe they wrote it after the fact because to buy themselves time of like, well, I'm telling them not to call the cops. That'll buy me time to get out of here or whatever. Like there are different possibilities there with an intruder. And there's some really, and there's some really, I do want to touch real quick. Not a lot. We've gone on long enough, but real quick there are some, major suspects that have been considered. Lou Smith also has like a long spreadsheet of these. One of the for me, kind of one of the top ones is Michael Helgoth, who committed suicide supposedly on February 14th, which was the day after the DA had made this big announcement saying that like soon we're going to have you kind of deal, by shooting himself in the stomach upwards with his left hand, which was his non-dominant hand, through a pillow or a blanket, which is a pretty weird way to commit suicide. He had a pair of high-tech boots. He had a stun gun that actually would match the mark, like the diameter would match the marks that were found on her. And there's like just a bunch of, you can dig more into him. There's a bunch of red flags from interviews with people who knew him, of things he said before the case and ways he acted and things he said after the murder occurred. There's another Gary Oliva.
I hear where you're going with like, these are some of the major suspects. It is not weird. It's actually very common for someone to commit suicide going up through the stomach. Anyone who researches, I don't want to leave a mess. I don't want my family to find it. I actually know someone who spent a year or so researching the easiest way to do it without hurting your family. And it was through a blanket up through the stomach. So it's actually not that odd.
Detective said, like, it was from detective saying that it was odd.
Why would you care if you drove it? Unless you had family that was going to find you.
Also, he was like a heavy drug dealer and involved in a lot of, like, it's not like his family was going to be the one who found, like, he lived alone. He had a girlfriend and he did cocaine, like possibly sold cocaine and was definitely interested in heroin. Like, he was not like in like the, I'm worried about my beloved wife finding me sort of scenario kind of thing. But that's a great point because I did not know that. But it was detectives who were like, it's a pretty weird way, and not just Lou Smith saying like, it's pretty weird and suspicious way, especially with his non-dominant hand.
And I wouldn't know that had I not known someone that went through that.
But it's a good point.
Know that?
He legit killed kittens. Like he worked at this like auto mechanic yard. It's like legit would kill kittens just for shit. Like the guy was not like a great guy. We'll just say that. And also had some pedophilic red flags. So that like a hot suspect right there. I just think it's important to mention other suspects than just the Ramseys. Gary Oliva, who was arrested for child porn and had a shrine of JonBenet and actually confessed in some of the jailhouse letters. And also had these like really creepy audio cassettes and had assaulted a girl in 1990. By the way, he assaulted,
or do you think that might be?
I think especially. I think he's been eliminated, so I don't think he's a real possibility anymore. But I think like it's important to bring up some of these because his DNA does not match, is why he was eliminated. Yet we're not eliminating any of the Ramseys, even though their DNA doesn't match.
I'm telling you, there's so many different ways that the DNA could. I don't think we should be relying on
not
DNA.
That way.
DNA was everywhere.
Except then why is that the only foreign DNA found inside of her underwear? And then it also matches this. You carry a body around. They didn't like strip her down and then put it back on and like somebody freaking random. And everybody at the scene was tested.
But that was one of the questions. Remember, was she dressed and undressed and dressed and undressed? So we don't know. Right?
No. I mean like after when the crime scene was contaminated is what I meant.
Oh yeah, but I'm like, okay.
Yeah. Like for DNA to have gotten to that area.
So if she went to bed like this, and then Patsy finds out something happened, so she changes her.
No. I was talking about a suspect with the cocaine and the drugs and everything. This is one of Lou Smith's suspects, Michael Helgoth, who killed himself in 1997. That's where the drug connection. I will mention this guy, though I think it's rude that he's always mentioned, and it breaks my heart. But Bill McReynolds, because he played Santa, and it was Christmas time, so the just suits the media perfectly to always put him in the spotlight as a potential suspect. He was eliminated, partly because his DNA didn't match, partly because he had had open heart surgery and was way too weak to have committed this crime. Also, his own daughter had been kidnapped like 20 years before. And she survived though, but like he'd gone through similar trauma, was retired, and now acted as a Santa, and yet got all of this shit for it. So
media, like leave Santa alone.
Yeah, I'm mentioning him because I feel like a lot of people will be like, you know, oh, you didn't mention Belmont Reynolds, and he's like always top of the list when people have their suspect list or whatever. And it's like, because he was eliminated, and I think it's messed up, but I will mention him. And of course, John Mark Carr, who is known to have confessed to it, was extradited from Thailand, and then it was proven that he also did not and could not have done it. But there's also like other suspects, and Lou Smith has a long list of suspects. And of course, we don't have access, you know, directly to the cops, you know, to all of their evidence and everything, and who else might be suspects. But I think it's important that almost everything heavily focuses on the Ramseys as suspects, and yet most of us don't know the names of some of these other primary suspects. That if it was any other case, that we would be suspecting a pedophile, you know. And I think if the Ramseys weren't weird, basically in their interactions, and if she wasn't a pageant queen and stuff, it wouldn't have been shown in the media this way. And I think there would be much more focus on the potential of a pedophile who became aware of her, whether it be through the pageants or whatever other exposure kind of thing. I think there'd be much more talk about that.
I disagree on this. Now, do I think that who they are and how weird they were in the pageants? Definitely the media focused on that. And yes, it definitely became the court of public opinion. Absolutely. Mm-hmm. However, I still think with some of the things, like how quickly everything was contaminated, especially with the body, with dad finding the body and this happening, and the ransom note on mom's notebook paper, and this and all this stuff, I still think we'd be focusing on the parents. I'm not saying they did it, but I definitely think
I disagree. Yeah,
on them because of who they were. They're shit.
I think a lot of the suspicion is because of who they were, because they decided to come on the news, because the way they interact on the news, because of all this beauty pageant stuff. I think a lot of the perspective on them is because of those choices, you know, them leaving for Atlanta and then not talking to the cops for 4 months. Like, I think really a lot of...
I really hope nothing happens to my daughter, because like she was top 6 Miss Idaho. Maybe I did it. I mean, I'm definitely not a mom. I don't know where that girl got that shit. It was not from me, but
where to go? Like the stuff, it is dangerous. Like, you know, there are freaking weirdos out there, and you know, like that's gonna be, you know, they're an easy spot to prey, sort of thing. Yeah, you know, but absolutely. Like anything, you take precautions and all of that. Obviously, like you don't want to not do things just because there can be danger in it or whatever. Like that's going to be anything. Mm-hmm. But you know, like I do think that if it was just a slightly different situation, there would have been more focus about also, it wouldn't have been all over the news to begin with if it hadn't been a pretty white girl. Like, let's be honest.
Absolutely. A 6-year-old little girl, and
yeah,
I don't know. I think so many things went wrong. I think that had it not been the Ramseys, that shit wouldn't have got contaminated the way it did. I think there's a lot of things that
well, I mean, it feels like more of a Boulder Police Department mistake.
I mean, okay, you guys don't come for me. This is my opinion and my opinion only. So just don't. The privilege of being a rich white family with a beautiful children that are in the limelight is a double-edged sword. You are going to get the benefits of being this privileged family, worked hard for it, not handed to you. I'm not saying that. You're going to get those benefits. Mm-hmm. You're also going to get the flip of that sword where everybody's looking to take you off that pedestal. Mm-hmm. Yay, Red.
No, I agree. And I think like
come after me for that shit.
No, but I agree. I think, you know, some of it is like, and it's funny because John Ramsey says this in an interview, and I was sitting there like, yeah, no, you're right. I don't like you. Like, and he's like, he said something about like, you know, people don't like us because we're rich. And I'm like, I mean, it's not just because you're rich. Like, Like, we don't like you because you're a dick. Like, but also, does me not liking him and thinking he's a dick mean he did it? You know, it's like, I do have to make sure I separate that out of like, if I just had the facts in front of all of the facts in front of me and not personality, you know, rubbing me the wrong way sort of deal, I think I would have immediately been like, I think more likely is this.
I would react to some of this shit going on. I mean, if this played out the way that, you know, that Patsy said and John said, I don't know how I would react. Somebody would probably think that I'm freaking weird because I do not react to situations like that, like expected. Right. I would probably be laughing and crying at the same time. I don't know. Yeah.
Yeah. I lash out in anger 100%. I'd be like a very angry mourner, I think. Mm-hmm. And the same thing of like having a weird sense of humor about things, because it's like, I would need those moments of like, I just need to relieve all of this. And my family and I have very dark senses of humor and we'll make weird jokes kind of deal. Like, so it's like anybody can, like come off the wrong way, especially if you don't know them outside of the little way we're seeing them sort of deal. So it's like, there is, but again, I'm not 100% saying it was an intruder. I'm just saying for me, what fits the facts the most. But at the same time, if tomorrow, you know, Burke were to come out and confess and like, you know, give a full explanation that totally made sense, I would be like, no, that makes sense. Like, not a surprise or whatever. Or if John did, which he never would. God, but like, you know,
either way, whether a dad did it or a mom did it or a brother did it, if there was someone in that household, that poor freaking family.
Yeah.
I am gonna do something real quick. So, we can touch on that. There's so much that we can only dive into so much.
Yeah, I know.
We're actually 30 minutes.
This is already a very long episode.
No problem with at all. Let's touch on that. But I wanted to let patrons, if you are here, or since we're going to touch on that, if you want to become a patron in the next 10 minutes, we are going to play Patreon Plinko. So patrons, you know the drill. Hang out. Someone will have a chance to play Patreon Plinko for prizes. And we'll get ready to do that in just a couple of minutes. Heads up.
Yeah. So great point. Come back to have brought up, why don't we discuss the grand jury? So the Ramseys, this evidence was put in front of a grand jury. And at the time, the DA came out, and the way he worded it very carefully, he did not actually say that the grand jury chose not to press charges. He said, you know, the grand jury has made their decision. We are not pressing charges, or something along those lines sort of deal. It didn't come out till many years later that actually the grand jury had voted to indict. So they had voted to indict. What they voted to indict for, though, was not murder, was child endangerment, and then like something that's basically the equivalent of like obstruction of justice, like kind of getting in the way of the police or what, and not cooperating sort of deal.
Because there wasn't the other one was evidence to meet the other criteria.
Right. Yeah, I guess that's what was put before them to make the thing, and it was for child endangerment and like basically maybe helping another person. There's a bunch of terminology with it. You can see it again in the CBS documentary.
We don't think you did it, but we think you like covered up all the shit.
But like, we think you kind of got in the way of figuring it out, and that you contributed to the endangerment of that child. Okay. And I think the DA chose not to actually press charges because he knew they didn't actually have enough evidence as far as removing reasonable doubt, which of course is the big thing in a case. You have to have a case where you can prove without reasonable doubt. Right. There's so much wiggle room for reasonable doubt that I think it would be difficult to prove the case, at least at that point in time. And with the current like state of evidence kind of deal that we know of, to be able to prove that case without reasonable doubt.
So being worried about that double jeopardy kind of thing there, you think?
Yeah. Maybe that, or just, you know, like, it could be like a double jeopardy thing, you know, that they would have to go after different charges the next time. also like what a lame thing, even if they did get them for that, like, you know, like this is what we were able to find. We couldn't find her murder. We found somebody that we were able to charge with child endangerment, you know, like when a little girl died so horribly. Like, that's not exactly a satisfying, you know, conclusion to this case kind of thing. Like, I mean, like I was about to, in one of the suspects, Gary Oliva, that makes me mad. He sexually assaulted a girl went to prison for sexually assaulting a girl in 1990. In 1991, he was out on probation. And during that time, he attempted to murder his mother. Like, I'm sorry, like, pause right there. Why was he already out on probation? Like, why can we not treat rape like a real fucking crime? How about that?
Different story, different time. All right, people, if you like this soapbox, I'm sure we'll be on it again next month.
Yep.
It might be mine next time.
Ooh, next month. Yeah. So next month, next month is September, my birthday month. October.
In 4 weeks.
Yeah. No. In October.
8 weeks.
A little more. Yeah. Nobody can do math at this point.
We're doing October.
Yeah, we're going to do 2 because we're going to do probably, I know one of the episodes is likely to be one thing. And then the other episode is likely to be maybe like what Women of Whiskeys normally does, right? With like kind of a slew of just crazy.
Yeah. So we're going to do one, which will be on a Saturday like this, that will be a crime that patrons will vote on. And then the Halloween happens to fall the day after our usual Wednesday stream. So we're going to do the usual Halloween montage of crimes where we'll take about 6 crimes and do an overview of them, so to speak. There might be costumes involved. There might be decorations. I don't know. It's a thing. So, but we are going to do an actual, you'll get a bonus Criminals and Cocktails that month. And on one of those, she's going to be here.
Yes.
She's going to be in the Davila bar. We're going to do this stuff up. We're going to have a great time.
That's going to be the part I'm super stoked for. Thank you, William Hall. Unfortunately, Nick will not be with me. I'm going to go off to do a road trip with my mother, and we're going to be partying it up for my birthday. So that's going to be fun. So Nick and I will have to celebrate when I get back.
When do you go live next on your channel?
It might not. So I'm going to be on, normally I go like first Wednesday of the month on Whiskey Mountains, but I will be on the road. So for a couple weeks, and then my mom's is going to be staying with us. So I'm going to try and do a live stream once we get back. But I'm just going to have to see how it goes. I mean, my mom's pretty cool. But it just feels weirder.
Yeah. So normally you go the first Wednesday of every month. At what time?
Yeah. At 6 p.m. on the first Wednesday on 6 p.m. Mountain, which is 8 p.m. Eastern. So on whiskeymountains.com or Whiskey Mountains YouTube, also whiskeymountains.com.
YouTube channel.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, but also in September, I'm doing the Alzheimer's walk. So, and my mom that's why she's sticking around, is she's going to do the walk with us this year. So it's going to be fun to have somebody with us for it. But yeah.
That's awesome. All right. I'm going to check for any new patrons. We're going to play some.
I had the opportunity.
All right, guys. I know that we did not hit everything today. This was a big one. It was massive, right? There's so many. I mean, you saw Adriana and I almost always agree on our cases, and we are not there.
So, we're on opposite pages on this one. So,
and maybe the more we look into it, I don't know.
Yeah.
So, you know what? Come back to this. Put your comments in, and the reason I say that is because I often go back to the Criminals and Cocktails to see what's on there, to try and get my brain shifted for the next one that we do. So if you have some hardcore opinions on this, please share those in the comments after we end the stream. That's the easiest way for me to go back and keep track.
Or like, especially like particular points that we did not, have time to make or didn't know about, kind of thing, that you feel like might help sway, some of the perspectives or points that we made during it.
And a lot of times I'll do a follow-up, like 10-minute reel or something or a little video to kind of come up on anything we may have missed that we should have touched on.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. Cool.
Yeah. William Hall says this is a 2-parter for sure. Yeah. And we're trying to do some more pre-recorded that we can drop and just be in chat so we can interact with you more. So,
yeah.
All right. Let's check for some new patrons. Adriana, I'm so glad that you came and did this.
Right? It was a fun one for me to, because Nick can tell you in the chat that when we decided on this one, and but like while it was still clearly going to be one of two because those were leading the poll. Like that at that point I was very much on your side of everything. And then since then, Nick has now watched way more documentaries and YouTube videos and interviews than he ever wanted to about, because every night it was like, hey, I'm watching this, or, it's his night off. And it's like, oh, good, because I just bought the CBS documentary. Let's watch 3 hours of biased bullshit.
He was texting me. He's like, Adriana bought this. This is going on. Like, he was all in. I'm not going to lie.
Yeah.
Okay.
But it was funny because he was the same way as me at the beginning of like, oh yeah, they definitely did it. And then like the more and more, it's like, this is getting a lot harder to stay where I was. So it's been a fun one because most cases we said we prefer cases that are solved. We already know who did it. So there's no debate. There's no changing my mind. There's just more interesting facts about how they figured it out or how he got away with it so long or what have you kind of thing, which is normally what interests me more. This case is so frustrating, but meant I hyper-focused way too much on it. And I podcast up the freaking wazoo on this, like audiobooks. Like, I don't ever want to hear about it. Part of me is like, I'm so done. I don't want to hear about it again. But at the same time, I'm like, is there something else?
I rely on court transcripts a lot, and I couldn't get them. Like,
you can't, right?
But not like usual.
Yeah.
So
right, like because it's not a solved case, there's not as much that's been released to the public, so it's much more difficult to get true primary source material for this one, and that's why I had to rely also a lot on like YouTube videos and documentaries just to try and catch actual video clips instead of somebody saying that somebody else said this.
That's the hard part.
And it's like, it turns out what they actually said. And it's like I would hear something. Yeah. I kept hearing, I'd be in lab listening to a podcast and I had a Post-it note thing set next to me. So if they said something that I was like, oh, I want to follow up on that or mention that, I'd like write it down so I could go try and find like more primary material to like fact check it. It was so fun. So many little things. So yeah, this is one of those. Next 2 weeks from now, I might be back on your side. Like, yeah.
Okay. Oh.
Yay.
All right.
What did Nick's trying to trade me in?
Wait, what? Nick. What? I don't believe that for a second. I don't believe it for a second. All right.
Thanks, MC.
The drill here.
Yeah, buddy.
We're gonna go. What?
I said, yeah, buddy. I was excited.
Okay. We are gonna. Mr. Jigs is here. Okay, just in time, Mr. Jigs. We're getting ready to do some Patreon Plinko. So if you are a patron, $4 or higher, that's it. Now's your time. You know it. Throw in your hashtag Plinko. Okay? Hashtag Plinko. Right now, I'm gonna score this thing up. We're gonna do this. We're gonna give away free shit. Why? Because that's what I do. I don't know. That's why.
Yeah, buddy.
And we're gonna get ready to do all the things with all the things. Are you guys ready? Hashtag.
I'm already singing the song.
Plinko.
Patreon Plinko. It's a game to play. With whiskey in our hands. We make your day. Support the show. Enjoy the fun. Cheers, everyone. Now you know, yeah, it's time for Patreon Plinko.
Woohoo! It's Plinko time. Say hi. Say hi. She's like, Murphy just stole my bed. Thank you.
Oh, Mervster. My little polar bear. Hi, Ellie.
Say hi. She's all shaking. She's like, where's she was laying on her dad's hoodie. So all right.
Oh, she's like, I need the extra warmth.
We're gonna play some Plinko, okay? Oh my god, she's dying. All right.
I can see the comments again better now that I can put away all those notes.
All right. So everybody's done their hashtags. Yes. Let's share this screen and see where we are. Okay. This dog, she's ridiculous. Oh, she just yawned. Everybody take a drink. We know.
Oh, shit.
Right? We're just getting started.
You don't know.
All right. Share the screen. We're going to share that one. There we go.
Right.
And we're going to collect these comments. Oh, she's yawning. You can't even see it. How about that? That's a big one. Here we go. 5 entries. Great odds, you guys. Holy
there you go.
moly. Great odds. Once we draw this, I'll show you what we're playing for. Dun, 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 dun. Dun, dun, dun. Richie!
We love Richie Z. Yes.
Oh,
Is Richie Z gonna win some leggings?
Maybe there's other things. All right, let's look. Should we see
Go,
what
God.
you're playing for, Richie?
Do
All
it.
right, what are we playing for tonight on Plinko? We've got leggings. We've got a choice of t-shirt, a flight board, the leather journal and pen from Wow, the boxers or briefs, the Weller Special Reserve, $20 gift card, or 5 entries to next mystery box giveaway. Let's talk about those boxers and briefs because that's a new one that's on our thing. There we are. You get choice of either one. All right, come on. That's freaking great, right?
I was trying to Vanna White them.
Oh, that's hilarious. All right.
Those are amazing. So what's he got to pick? A through?
I won.
Yeah, buddy. What's he got to pick? A through F?
Okay, so here we go. I'm in it. No yawning, Andy. Okay. A, B, C, D, E, or F. Here's where we're going for it. So, Richie,
Pick A through F, Richie Z.
pick A through F.
I don't think, like, whenever I do get to meet Richie Z in person, I feel like I'm still going to call him Richie Z and not just Richie. Did he yawn again? I know it. It's a good thing it's a fresh bottle of Rare Breed for me. With all of her yawning.
B, please. Are you okay?
B.
I feel like you're vibrating.
Bravo.
A, B. Ready?
Do it.
3.
Odd number means an intruder did it.
3. Okay, honestly, you guys, sorry that you can't see it that well. I should have soloed it, but either way, my camera's broken, so
sorry.
it's an odd one. 3 is what we're doing. 3 is a flight board, that came from Koenig Distillery. It's made of one of their barrels. Koenig is a local distillery here. They make some amazing whiskey. They also make brandy and flavored vodka. They grow their fruit right there and they put it in. But Richie, I'm going to send you that flight board. Congratulations. Thank you for your support as a patron. I love that. We are buying, I don't have the mystery boxes up today because we're not playing that, but on Wednesdays, we play the mystery box giveaway and you'll see my numbers on the top of them. They need a little love and help. So that's what I'm purchasing. I actually have them ordered now. I know you think it's not a lot of money, but, it's great.
Yay, Patreon. You should also purchase for $6 the CBS documentary on Amazon. And just think about the bias, though, because it's already supporting your side, but just keep in mind the stuff it's leaving. Text me while you watch it. Even if I'm on the road, I'll be like, yeah, but what about this?
So, everybody, I'm going to see you guys hopefully Wednesday night. I hope you come join me for Women Whiskeys on Wednesday night live. So that's going to happen at, 8 p.m. Pacific, 11 p.m. Eastern, same place. And please come back, comment your thoughts that we didn't get to. And if you can email us at womenofwhiskies@gmail.com. Any crimes, cocktails, anything you'd like to see Adriana and I do in the future. It's always, we like to have lots of choices because the patrons do vote on them. So if you have some, send us the name, the place, and a brief synopsis so that we know where to start digging.
Yeah. And join Patreon so that you can vote. Also, another fun thing to comment would be like sort of a percentage of how much you're on, whether the Ramseys did it or whether the Ramseys did not do it. And maybe it was an intruder.
Yeah.
Like, that would be kind of a fun thing. And if you came into this with one idea, like if your percentage changed at all during, like, I feel like part of my goal tonight was like totally present what a lot of people, strongly feel and what I did, but see if like maybe building up some of this other stuff, maybe just weight that percentage just a bit. Yeah. Like that would be a fun thing for y'all to comment.
It actually would. I love that idea.
That'd be cool.
Don't forget to go over to Whiskey Mountains on YouTube. Give her a like and a subscribe. If you had a good time, I would love a like or subscribe. But if nothing else, on your way out, just hit the like button that you liked this particular evening. I like to kind of track that and see what you like and what you don't like. So hit the like button on the way out. Adriana, always fun. Love the Criminals and Cocktails. Love doing it with you.
So much fun.
Anytime you want to come on a Wednesday, Women of Whiskeys, I would love that too. You have been a Women of Whiskeys since the very beginning. So
know it. I'm all about this.
That's right. And she's a super cool human that is saving her fellow humans that have Alzheimer's. So
trying to. If y'all, I've seen some people coming in late. If y'all came in late, like for real, go back to the beginning and watch more of the stream. You'll get sucked in. I promise. It was a good one.
I don't necessarily agree with her on this one. So
right, like you'll see me get a little feisty, and
so we can't
defensive.
do what we do without patrons because. This is never going to pay my rent. That's not what I'm looking for. I'm looking for this to support itself so that we can do this every Wednesday and a few times a month or whenever to do our Criminals and Cocktails because it brings us joy and I hope it brings you guys joy. So thank you, patrons. And see you Wednesday. Cheers.
Cheers out.
Thank you for the way you make me feel. Just like a stolen car with a kid behind the wheel. I want to thank you for the way you make me feel. Well, everything's in Technicolor, yeah, everything's so bright.